Piers got torched, incinerated, and destroyed by Dan Bilzerian. Who is this guy? He is a poker player, a businessman, and a social media influencer. Let's take a listen at how he is destroying Piers Morgan every step of the way.
When Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, was killed by the IDF, you were out lauding him as a hero. To most people, he's the despicable head of a terrorist organization that perpetrated on October the 7th one of the worst terror attacks in modern history. What's heroic about that?
Well, I think when you look at it in a vacuum, it's a very different picture. It's kind of like if I, raped your mother and I kicked you in the nuts 3 times and then you punched me in the face and everybody just wanted to focus on you punching me in the face. I think that would be a very different conversation than when you looked at it, the whole of what happened. And the whole of what happened was Nakba. That's where it started. You have 750,000 Palestinians that got displaced. And then you've got multiple, acts of terror, in my opinion, on Israel's side that would make October 7th look like nothing. So to me, I think it was a retaliation, and I think that Hamas is a resistance organization, and I think that Israel is a terrorist.
So I think Piers Morgan was like, what? What are you doing? I mean, come on, don't expose them this way. So basically, Piers Morgan, this is the nightmare of his entire career. Like this guy, Daniel, he gave all the answer to Piers Morgan and he rebutted him in such a way, Piers was completely dumbfounded.
Did Israel kill 1,200 people in a single day and wound nearly 7,000?
It all started on October 7th. So yeah, you believe that. You have to. Let's take a listen more.
Well, I mean, you have, Nakba, there was, 15,000 people killed during Nakba. I mean, there was Sabra and Shatila. I mean, that was 3,500 civilians. Then you have 2014, they killed 1,500 civilians. 500 plus were kids. I mean, so any one of those days would have been much worse than October 7th, but nobody really talks about
those
that.
Didn't happen in a single day.
And October 7th is not nearly as bad as what they say.
Well, those didn't happen in a single day.
Well, you have, Sabra and Shatila, that was 35.
That didn't happen in a single day. That's your excuse, Piers Morgan? How pathetic you are. Just because you are a country, you have a military killing people indiscriminately and killing innocent civilians doesn't mean that you're excused from those kind of punishment. Nobody's calling you to account. Doesn't mean that you're not accountable. So he's saying, oh, those 1,500 people got killed. Oh, they didn't get killed in a day. I mean, come on, Piers. I mean, this is your standard when it comes to valuing human life. This is how you see these Palestinian people. But wait a second. If it is about the, other people, other group, no, they value.
500 people, so that was basically 7 October 7th. And October 7th, I think the numbers get inflated a lot too, because you're not taking into account that it was only 650 civilians, and there was the Hannibal Directive that was employed, and the Hannibal Directive is when the military is basically killing civilians so that they aren't taken as hostages. And that had to be hundreds of people, so I would argue that it was less than 500 civilians that were killed, and to me, that is much less than what the Israelis have been doing to the Palestinians.
But you said
even the year when October 7th happened, they had killed hundreds of Palestinians that year. It was the bloodiest year for kids. So that was that was a reply to what had been happening.
But when you say that October 7th wasn't as bad as people have said, what do you mean by that? Because from Hamas's own boasting through their GoPro cameras,
Piers will lie about everything. He starts his lying with so many things. Like he will be starting with the rape and all that, and then he will keep on lying and lying and lying. I mean, just like the Zionist media propaganda. He is the biggest liar on social media.
Mutilated, burned alive, raped and abused, beheaded some people, set fire to homes, they kidnapped babies, they kidnapped Holocaust survivors, grandparents. They did just about every act of depravity it is possible to do. And they didn't just do it, they gleefully posted it on social media and the internet so that we could all watch in real time the horrors that they were perpetrating.
There was absolutely zero proof of that, Piers Morgan. Zero proof.
It's hard to imagine a more horrific act than what happened that day. Why would you try to downplay it?
Well, I mean, there was only 2 babies killed from what I was told, and one was in the hospital, and the other one was shot by a bullet. There was no babies in ovens. There was no, beheaded people that I saw. The rapes were disproven. So all that was Israeli propaganda. And the problem is Israel has continued to lie and lie and lie, and they've been caught lying. And they're the only ones that have actually been caught red-handed raping prisoners. And they've done it, and the people that raped the prisoners were now heroes, and they got released, and there was nothing that happened to them. So I think it's very hypocritical to focus on things that they're doing and then try and blame them, on Hamas or the Palestinians.
It's interesting because
it's just, to me, total bullshit. It's just Israeli propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, many people will listen to you and think that what you're spewing is bullshit propaganda from the other side. And the reason I say that is you say there was no raping or abuse of women, and yet the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, Pramila Patten, reported in March this year that there was clear and convincing information that Israeli hostages in Gaza experienced sexual violence, including rape, sexualized torture, and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, and reasonable grounds to believe such abuse is ongoing. There was also reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred during the 7th of October attacks in multiple locations across Gaza periphery, including rape and gang rape in at least 3 locations. So when
my God, Piers Morgan! Oh my God, that's a breaking news! Well, what about those UN personnel giving talks and making announcement every single day and telling us what is exactly happened in Gaza? What about those briefings where the UN expert, he's quoting an UN expert, right? What about those quoting where they clearly accuse Israel of violating international law every single day, violating human rights law every single day? Well, no, those are not breaking news. The breaking news for Piers Morgan is what they said back in March and without any proof. This is a pathetic, this guy is just beyond pathetic.
You say it didn't happen. What you're really saying is you think that the United Nations report into all this, which established it absolutely did happen and was horrific.
Yeah, Piers Morgan, yes. You go with the UN, believe everything they say. Why you cherry pick some and don't others?
Horrific is what? Is a pack of lies? And if so, why would the United Nations lie?
Look, I wasn't there, but I have seen articles that said that it did not happen. So, if it did happen, that's terrible, and I think that's atrocious. I don't ever believe in rape, but during Sabra and Shatila, there was a girl raped in front of her father, and that's happened on the other side numerous times. It happened in the prison. They were literally rioting because they felt like they had the right to rape these prisoners. So to me, I think it's a bit hypocritical. You can't believe that you have the right to rape prisoners and then complain about them raping your civilians as well. So I don't think it just can only go one way. I think it's atrocious on both sides.
You said Hamas are not terrorists, they're an army fighting for their country against the worst terror organization on the planet. And yet Hamas were given power in Gaza in 2005. They were given billions of dollars, a lot of it in a very suspect manner by Benjamin Netanyahu and his government, because he wanted to create a rift between Palestinian groups, and I completely accept that. But there's no doubt from what has now emerged that Hamas spent most of that money not on benefiting the lives of Palestinian people in Gaza, but on building an elaborate tunnel system and arming themselves to the teeth so that they could perpetrate this act of horror on October the 7th in a strike against Israel that they hope would decapitate Israel. I'm just curious why you would go out of your way. You say you've read things, but you're a guy of big influence. You've got a big following, 30-odd million people on Instagram. With respect. And
so now Piers Morgan has a problem with the Hamas's tunnel. Come on. Are you kidding me? Israel is getting THAAD missile system, every kind of defense system from US every single day. They're getting billions of dollars in aid. And you have problem with Hamas building tunnels? Oh my God. This guy, I don't know what to say, but this is something very, very unprofessional of him. He's a liar paid by the Rupert Murdoch Zionist company, and what Piers Morgan will do is continue to lie more and more, and he will get called by people like Dan Bilzerian more and more.